Y'all ready?
Fish Stripes live off-season edition. My name is Azgazut, and we have a nice full squad here for you today. We have Eli Sussman, Alex Carver, Kevin Barral, Hector Rodriguez, Daniel Rodriguez, and it's officially awards season. We're a couple weeks out of the World Series. The Braves are world champions, and the one Marlins news we have for awards is Marlins starting pitcher Trevor Rogers is a finalist for the National League Rookie of the Year, along with Jonathan India and Dylan Carlson. So, Alex, I'll start with you here. Did Trevor do enough in those first 2 months to really secure that award?
Yeah, honestly, I would say the missed time is what's going to cost him. But it's good to see him nominated, though, because he deserves it. For sure. I mean, as we've talked about many times, it's a guy that came a very long way in a very short period of time with a missed season mixed in. So, yeah, just to be nominated is, I'm sure, an honor for him. You know, he had things bigger than baseball going on in the background. We all know that. So you can't be mad about it. You can't be mad about why he missed the time. You know, it's not like he suffered like a freak injury and, you know, it came down to that. He was dealing with a lot of other things that weren't baseball related and needed his attention clearly. So yeah, it's great for him to be nominated, but I do think that India will be the eventual winner of the award. But cool to see another nominee. The Marlins have had, I think, 4 or 5 Rookie of the Years, and would have been nice to get another one. But yeah. Like I said, everything in context. So, yeah, good to see the nomination.
Yeah, definitely kudos to him for, still focusing on baseball the way he did. And you're right, he would have been the 5th. If he wins, he would be the 5th Marlin to win the award behind Dontrell Willis, Hanley Ramirez, Chris Coughlin, and Jose Fernandez. Kevin, it was a bit of a perfect storm when Trevor was missing all that time and not going deep into games. Jonathan India just became the hottest hitter on the planet. Do you agree with Alex more in the sense that it looks like it's India's award to lose?
Yeah, that's what it seems like. I would say Trevor comes in second, but yeah, Trevor, I think the time missed, obviously, we wished him the best at the time. We still do now. It was bigger than Alex, and yeah, you would say that's what cost him because India at that time just went crazy too. Mm-hmm. He almost got that team in the playoff contention. Although Trevor, it seemed to have a more successful season before the All-Star break, as he did make the All-Star team, got 2 Rookies of the Month. Just seemed to be everything going well for Trevor after that one bad start against St. Louis, who was coincidentally against Dylan Carlson, who's the other finalist. Yeah, it just seems like Trevor isn't going to win it. I would be shocked if he wins it, although he really deserves it at the same time just because of all the accomplishments he's done and really holding it down for the pitchers as there was a lot of injuries throughout the season. I think Trevor will be second in the voting when all that comes out. But yeah, it's India's award to lose right now.
Yeah, I think if I remember correctly, I think in Trevor's first start of the season against St. Louis, Carlson had a big hit, possibly. Hector, I'll go to you here. Trevor pitched 133 innings, so if he doesn't win the award, it's not so much based on just time missed because he pitched a good amount of innings. So would you say, did he lose it based on performance in the second half, or is it just, India's superb offensive play throughout the year?
I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that India plays every day. And I do think India will be the eventual winner. I think Trevor will finish second. Trevor, you only see him once every 5th day, while India is playing every single day, and he's performing better than just about everybody else in the game of baseball every single day. And he was playing on a team that was actually contending, the Marlins. No one's really watching them. Hell, I went to their games towards the end of the season. The stadium was more than half empty. It was like 3/4 empty or more. So Trevor Rogers really wasn't getting the national attention that Jonathan India was. But Jonathan India also played really well for a good stretch of the time, while Trevor missed a month because of obvious reasons. No one's going to fault him for missing the time that he did miss because obviously, there are things that are bigger than baseball, and that situation that was going on with Trevor, warranted a situation that was bigger than baseball. But, I mean, for a while, it looked like Trevor was the best left-handed pitcher in the National League. And, for let alone best rookie pitcher, he looked like the best left-handed pitcher for a good period of time in the NL. And, if you took a poll of, top, southpaw pitchers in the National League, you're going to get a couple votes for Trevor Rogers. But At the end of the day, I think Jonathan India, will be the NL Rookie of the Year, and Trevor Rogers he might be a close second, but I think India gets the majority of the votes.
Yeah, well, he won the Rookie of the Month award both in April and May. So you'd assume he would get some first place votes. But you're just reading out Jonathan India's numbers for the season. He had 143 hits. He had 269 with a 376 on base. He had an OPS of 835 and an OPS plus of 113, all well above average. Eli, your thoughts on this race? He'll get some first place votes, I assume, but I don't think anywhere near the amount that India gets.
Well, more prestigious than the Rookie of the Month honors. He was a 3-time winner of the Fish Stripes Marlin of the Month honors, as voted on by our readers. That included not just April and May, but also in spring training. And that's kind of where all this momentum got going, right? That's what I really enjoyed about his year, is that every single spring there are a handful of guys that pop in spring training, and sometimes none, sometimes maybe only one of those guys actually carry it forward into the regular season and justify what we were getting excited about. And he was the most shining example of that, actually proving prescient and actually translating that stuff into being a more effective pitcher than the one that we'd seen during the regular season. So that was fun. And it was, it's hard to describe just how encouraging it was to see how consistently dominant he was early on in the year. I don't really have much to add that wasn't already covered. It's just that the narrative really fell apart for him for reasons completely out of his control. But the narrative being gone, the fact that you did have this really solid season from Jonathan India being the main contender. Well, I was watching the announcement live, and I got scared because for whatever reason they teased it by mentioning Jonathan India and by mentioning Patrick Wisdom of the Cubs. I don't know if people caught that. For whatever reason, they teased that. And Wisdom had one of those polarizing years where he hit 1 million home runs, but he's not actually good at baseball. He just hits a lot of home runs, and he got really lucky. And nobody that would have been really disappointing. That for a moment, that made me fear that somehow Trevor may have fallen out of the top 3. And I'm glad that he at least has this week to do kind of a victory lap. The fact that he cracked that top 3 and is a finalist. I think that alone is he deserves that. He deserves to have this opportunity to remind people of what he accomplished. So I'm just hoping that he gets some first place votes. That's not unanimous for India. So I personally believe that India would be the rightful winner by the way that we usually interpret these awards. Of course, Trevor, that's nothing to take away from Trevor. And I think that his future is brighter. I could say that honestly, that if I were to pick one guy to want on my team for 2022 through the next decade, I would certainly take Trevor over any of these other guys. His ceiling is immense and his floor is immense. He's just an awesome pitcher.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with you there. Daniel, if you were one of the writers voting for this award, non-biased, who would you vote for?
I would just if you just showed me all the numbers, you take out their names, you take out the teams, it would probably have to be wholeheartedly probably India. Just probably the amount of games that he had. Just you mentioned his OPS over 8, just what he did for that team. Just being like a spark plug. Igniting Cincinnati, and and also when you look at the other player we're not really talking about, Dylan Carlson, his numbers also stand out too. He had a really good year, and I don't want to be sour or anything, but I think the writers could potentially put Dylan Carlson in second place and have Trevor Rogers third, just maybe solely based on how the Cardinals did this season. Especially, what did they win, 15, 16 games in a row? And I think they could put that into consideration. And when you also mentioned that they're the only playoff team between these 3 teams, they're the only one who made it to the playoffs, and they could potentially say how Carlson was maybe a big impact weapon in the team. Maybe if he wasn't there, they don't make it to the playoffs. So I would say don't be surprised if Carlson gets second, but I think Trevor Rogers should win it, but he'll probably be a close second behind Jonathan India.
Yeah, looking at Carlson's stats, he played 149 games. India played 150. So both of them were in there every single day throughout the season, which, goes to their advantage. Carlson hit 266. He had an OPS of 780, but he had an OPS plus of 117, greater than India. So it's going to be a fascinating, vote, because I think that's going to be the most interesting one of them all, because, the AL MVP is pretty obvious. But moving on to a tweet by a nice writer in John Morosi, a little report came out that the Marlins are considering trading one of their 3 major league starting pitchers in Sandy, Pablo, and Eliezer Hernandez. Eliezer, from what I thought, was all but gone. And I guess you mentioned those three because those are the three that are arbitration eligible. So, Eli, what can you make of that report? And basically, besides Eliezer, do you see them trading any of the other two?
I'm back. To me, I think the most important thing is not to take this stuff that literally when it comes to these reports. That I believe that Morosi has good information, but I don't really. Nobody in their right minds puts Sandy and Pablo and Eliezer all in the same bucket. They're all very different players, and especially if you want to contrast from the top to the bottom, Sandy and Eliezer. Just on what they've produced in the big leagues and the tangibles that they have moving forward, like to put them all in one bucket, it tells me more so. My big takeaway was one focusing on Sandy, the fact that his name was brought up even by any source anywhere close to the team, just because we're now over a month removed from reporting from Craig Mish and the Miami Herald that the Marlins were having contract extension negotiations with Sandy and that they were optimistic. That was a quote, that they were like going in the right direction in terms of actually getting that deal done. And now more than a month removed from that, several weeks removed from Miggy Rowe's extension becoming official, we've had no substantial update on Sandy. And in fact, the first time his name is in the news this offseason is when he gets mentioned even casually to a national reporter about his potential availability. So that to me is really the only thing I'm focused on is Sandy in particular, him being at this moment, the most important pitcher in the organization. And this organization has a ton of important pitchers, but he's the guy that's been there and done that and who just continues to get better, who we thought there was mutual interest in making sure he's here for the rest of his team control, which is already at 3 years, if not beyond that. And yet we're at this point where there's, again, he's in the news for the complete opposite reason, that his future seems to be insecure. That was my takeaway.
Yeah, no, I thought it was peculiar. Then I agree with you putting all three of them in the same, pot over there because, I think Sandy is all, unless something has changed where they feel that they can't get an extension together with him, there's no reason to even have his name reported out there. Kevin, you would say that no, none of these three guys are going to get traded, maybe besides Eliezer. Would you rather trade one of Pablo or Eliezer or both? Because I'm just going to leave Sandy out of this. I don't think they're going to even consider trading that guy. But would you be in favor of trading one of Pablo or Eliezer or both versus trading one of the minor league guys? Because you would assume that Pablo would net a much greater return than any of those minor league guys. So which side of the way would you go, Kevin?
Yeah, quickly with Sandy. I don't even know why his name is in the report. There's no need. I mean, Eli said it. They were trying to get a contract extension done. Pablo and Eliezer, I guess you could throw them in that report because I know around trade deadline it was spoken of Pablo. No quoting there, but it seemed like there was a chance he got traded. It just seemed like he was the odd man out. He's getting up there in age. Maybe seemed like it's time to make a move. But yeah, how can I even put this? Eliezer, I guess, is the odd man out now when you really look at it. I think he's the one who will get dealt, or they'll move him to the bullpen. I think there's only two ways you could go about that. And I mentioned on my article with Fish Stripes today with the free agents, Minnesota, man. Miami, Minnesota have made deals. The Sergio Romo deal. They seem, and Minnesota did have interest in Eliezer, so that makes a lot of sense to make a deal like that and send Eliezer over to Minnesota. In a way, you could get a guy like a Mitch Garver or maybe even a Max Kepler as well, which Mitch Garver is on a 1 year, $6 million deal with an arbitration in 2023, as Kepler is on a 5 year, $35 million deal. He's in the fourth year of that deal, which I think it's worth $10 million or $6 million. I know his club option is worth $10 million. So that's a little bit of control there with a guy like Kepler, and then you have Mitch Garver, who you have the arbitration for a year, and then he's an unrestricted free agent. But yeah, when it comes to Eliezer with Pablo and Eliezer and Pablo, there's many ways you could go. I do think Pablo stays on the team and starts 2022 with the team. Maybe they'll make a move at the deadline with Pablo if he isn't playing up to standards. And maybe a team like, I don't know, the Yankees who need starting pitching desperately and make a move there for Pablo. So we'll see what happens. But I'm a little surprised that they even put Pablo's name in here as well, because he only played one game in the second half of the season, and it was that final game to start. So there wasn't much value for Pablo as there was at the trade deadline when he was maybe pitching some of the best baseball that season, where he had the 9 strikeouts, the Wrigley game. So there was a lot to talk about then. Not right now, really, with Pablo. So yeah.
Yeah, that was an awesome game. That the day that he struck out 9 consecutive Braves to start the game against the world champions, and he ended up not striking out another batter for the rest of the game, which is just a pretty ironic one. Anyway, the way I look at it is just, these two guys in Pablo and Sandy, you want to supplement those players. You don't want to, eliminate an area of strength, just to make it a weakness to get offense. To me, it just doesn't make sense. Alex, a lot of these minor leaguers are going to be up for grabs. A lot of the 2020 first round pick, a lot of the 2020 draft picks, to be specific, are going to be up for grabs, you would think. Which would you say are the most likely to go? I think they're going to be really reluctant to move on from Max Meyer. I don't think they want to move on from the 3rd overall pick, especially after the season he had. So if it's between McCambley, Eater, and Nicholas, and just guys like that, who would you, since you report minor leagues, who would you be more feel the best of moving on from?
So the polarizing thing for me on this particular tweet that is on the screen from John Morosi is that they want to clear a rotation spot for a next young starter. To me, that points to one individual, and it's Max Meyer. Max Meyer had a ridiculous year, as you stated, Isaac. He made it up to AAA at the end of the year because Pensacola's year got cut short, and he was effective there as well. I think in one game there, he had 10 strikeouts in his first or second AAA start, if I remember correctly. So yeah, that's what that points to for me, is that they look at Max Meyer as a guy that they think is ready, and ready pretty quickly. So yeah, I can't argue with that. That guy had an amazing year. It's everything that he did is insane. And I think that that's a guy that they are really going to be looking at, maybe not even midway through next season, as a guy that they think is ready right now. So, if they're clearing a rotation spot, as this specifically says, that's the guy I would point to as a guy that they will not trade, that they don't want to trade. They want him here. They see a lot in him. And I don't think they'll deal him. We know everything that happened with at the deadline with Craig's reporting and everything else. But if this is the report now from Morosi, and we all know him to usually get it right, I think that's the guy that you have to point to and say that they're ready to see him in a Marlins uniform. So I would say that, after this report, and who John Morosi is, that's a guy I really don't think they'll trade unless they're overwhelmed. The other guys that you mentioned, for sure, all could be either in a package deal, or, maybe for lesser prospects, you're not going to get the return that you would have gotten on Max Meyer. Definitely, probably not even now on Eater, who's going to miss probably all of next season, even though I think he will be great eventually. Wiping out an entire year of development will cost him. So, and cost the Marlins on a potential return. So I think you're looking at those other guys, Kyle Nicholas, McCambley, and deeper down prospects, as guys that the Marlins will look to move on from if this competitive window is indeed opening. So, yeah, per this report, I think it kind of flips the script on Max Meyer. I really don't see him being traded per this tweet and per this report. Of course, we have to see what happens. The Marlins could get a deal that they can't turn down, and then everything could change. But, I think per this that they're a little bit more reluctant to move on from Meyer right now. That's my opinion.
Yeah, we're gonna discuss Meyer a little bit more in depth later on in the show. I think it's, when it comes to the minor league pitchers, I've gone out and said that of the 2020 draft picks, all 6 pitchers, for sure one of them is going to be traded. Hector, when it comes to those 4 minor league pitchers that are available, which one would you like to see gone the most, or which one would you be less reluctant to trade?
So out of Max, I definitely wouldn't want to trade Max, because I think Max has a lot of potential. And even if he doesn't pan out, might not make as a starting pitcher in the major league level, I think he could be an elite closer. He has that elite 2-pitch mix that coming out of the draft. He had a 70-grade fastball, 70-grade slider. I guess the one that you could probably try to trade now is Jake Eater, but the value you're going to get back isn't much. And the reason why you might want to consider trading him now is because you're not sure what you're going to get back when he comes back from Tommy John. I mean, there are guys that do come back and come back better, but you're not 100% sure, what you're really going to get out of him. Kyle Nicholas is another guy that I would be okay moving on from, but I do like Zach McCambley a lot. I watched him a little bit at Coastal Carolina. He's got a great breaking ball, good fastball, throw strikes. I think he's a guy that can perform at a pretty high level.
Yeah, well, the reason we're discussing trading these minor league guys is because, the 40-man roster is full. The Marlins have reinstated Brian Anderson, Garrett Cooper, guys like that, John Birdie. So, Daniel, with the 40-man roster at 40, if the Marlins were to make any acquisition during the offseason, they're going to have to, clear some spots. Magneuris Sierra has been outrighted to AAA. So, if the Marlins were to acquire another player, who do you see being the first one off the boat?
That's tough. I think I could give you probably 20 names that should be gone. And, I think it's the usual suspects, Lewis, Isan, guys like that who haven't really been performing up to the level that thought they were. And those are guys from previous regimes, guys who they just need to let go of and give other guys opportunities. But I think it's just maybe the usual suspects and maybe including maybe someone like Garrett Cooper, just because he's just really injury prone. I think that's someone that the Marlins can get rid of, especially to an AL team. He'll be a really great DH, and maybe six with the Marlins if the NL does get that. But I think it's Lewis, Isan, and maybe you could even throw John Birdie there. Maybe if they're too lenient on his concussions and just maybe they don't want to go through something like that again, I could see Birdie. But I think it's really Isan and Lewis that just need to get out.
I think Daniel just skipped over the most obvious one. It's Jorge Alfaro.
Yeah.
Right? Jorge Alfaro is the one that's earned.
I forget.
He's the one that's
too busy on outfield.
Yeah, he's the one that's due the most money in upcoming arbitration, over $2 million. And it's, we thought he should have been gone in August. Once they had all these other catchers knocking on the door, they tried to experiment on other positions. It failed pretty miserably. It got him hurt too. He's gone. And the other, I thought it was curious. It was probably at least a week ago with Christina DiNicola on MLB.com that she did like this pretty thorough rundown of everybody on the roster, just with quick little thoughts. And she snuck in there something about Paul Campbell being unlikely to stick on the 40-man. And I thought that was she kind of went out of her way to say that, the Marlins are like kind of underwhelmed with the entire year he had, not just performing, but obviously the PED suspension and the thinking that he'll probably clear waivers if they do get rid of him. So I thought it was curious that she chose to go out of her way to mention that his spot was shaky. I'd put it to Alfaro, being that we already expect him to be non-tendered in the next couple of weeks anyway. It's only a matter of time once he needs a spot. And also Paul Campbell, with the thinking that not only would they clear a spot, but he's actually a guy that might actually clear waivers, and then they could sort of try to salvage something from him in spring training and beyond.
Not only to clear a spot, just because you mentioned Paul Campbell, you got the list of minor league free agents, and I thought there was a couple guys on that list that probably could have stuck over Paul Campbell, such as Alberto Guerrero, which was my main one. Also, you had George Guzman on there as well. So they keep Paul Campbell around at least for now as those guys head to free agency. So I don't know. I think if they are going to waive him off eventually, which could happen, definitely, as you stated, Eli, why didn't they do it already? So not going to dig too deep into that, but I thought there was a couple names, couple arms on that free agent list that could have stuck over a guy like Paul Campbell.
And just to note, Jorge Guzman was part of that Stanton trade. So that's now another piece gone from that Stanton trade, which it's not looking too good. So pretty much the only guy left in that trade now is Jose Devers, who I guess has a lot on his shoulders now to make that trade, be a positive one in a way.
Yeah, the success of that trade totally relies on the shoulders of Jose Devers now, who was injured most of the year in 2021. But, at the end of the day, you guys got to remember, it's all about the money with that trade. Unfortunately, I thought, when you're trading him to the Yankees in that contract, you could have secured more than just Guzman and Castro and Devers. But we're here now where Guzman is no longer with the organization. Castro is no longer with the organization. So it really does rely on Devers being an everyday starter up the middle at some point. Now, some players have elected free agency over the last couple of days in Joe Kelly, Johnny Cueto, Jock Peterson, Roberto Perez, Kyle Schwarber, Kevin Pillar, Andrew McCutchen, Rubel Herrera, just to mention a few of them. So, Hector, I'll go to you here. Of all these guys that just became free agents recently, Nick Castellanos is also on that list. Who would you like to see the Marlins pursue?
Who do I think the Marlins should pursue or will?
Should.
Well, I definitely think Castellanos should be pursued, and I think they will. He's a hometown kid, good power, and yeah, I know the home road splits are pretty wide, but he's still a pretty solid hitter, on the road. And I think he'll do okay in South Florida. Another guy that I think that they should really take a look at is I would take a look at Kyle Schwarber. I think they need to add some power to their lineup. I think Kyle Schwarber would be a perfect addition. If they're not able to get a guy like Castellanos, try to go for a guy like Jock Peterson or Jorge Soler. Mark Canha is another name that I think would, and another player, former Marlin prospect that I think could perform at a pretty high level for the Marlins. But Kyle Schwarber, I think, could be, even in Lone Depot Park, right field, it plays pretty fair to left-handed hitters. I think he could be about a 25 to 30 homer guy at Lone Depot.
Eli, I know he was never like a great catcher, but when was the last time that Schwarber caught? And is that an option for a catcher for Miami?
I appreciate the creativity on that. I'd have to look at, I guess at some point during the 2016 season is the last time he caught at all.
Did they have robot umpires? Maybe. Was that the frame?
It'd be, oh, you know what? Okay, so the last time he apparently caught a game at some point in 2019. I did not remember that. That was only one inning. He caught one inning of one game in 2019. But otherwise, you got to go back a couple of years more. I am really intrigued by Schwarber because of, just his exceptional power, the kind of power that you trust no matter where ballpark you're playing in, including at Lone Depot. He hit a couple of home runs at Lone Depot. We remember that series, right? When he came in red hot and somehow he left even hotter than when he came in. That was like right at the peak of his powers with the Nats earlier in the year. You just have to live with the defense. The Red Sox experimented with him at first base towards the end of the season. That didn't go well. And the Marlins don't really need first base anyway. So most likely you stick him in left field or you DH in some combination of those two. He's intriguing to me, even more so than Castellanos, because Castellanos is going to likely require a longer term deal, I would think, because of his better track record of durability. I was surprised that I didn't really notice how young Schwarber still is. Schwarber is a full year younger than Castellanos is, yet I think the expectation is that Castellanos will require the bigger guaranteed dollar commitment. And if with this Marlins offseason, I think ideally you want to see them make multiple big acquisitions, and you don't want one big dollar commitment to prevent them from addressing another area. And Schwarber is the kind of guy that kind of allows you to walk those multiple lines where you can make a big investment in him, but it doesn't preclude them from getting serious about addressing catcher or addressing the closer situation, something like that. So he's one particular guy that I like. I like McCutchen a lot too, as someone who I think would, because of where he is age-wise, 35 and a half by the time we get into next year. He's someone that's going to be a great value. And for someone that always gets on base, he's gone through a few phases of his career. He's long removed from the MVP status, but he still gets on base at a really high level and quietly hit for a lot more power than I think people noticed last year for the Phillies. So I wasn't surprised to see his option declined, but I think there'll be a whole lot of interest in him because of what he still brings as a player and how much everybody seems to love him, not just players, but fans in particular as well. He's a couple of years ago, the Marlins went after somebody like that in Curtis Granderson, but they got him a few years too late. With McCutchen, I think all indications, he has some skills that I think will age pretty gracefully. So he's not a top priority, but he is absolutely somebody that I think would be a great complementary hitter just to give them some more length in their lineup. And certainly a higher floor than a lot of the other guys we had to watch, unfortunately, this past year.
Yeah, well, McCutchen actually had an OBP of 112 points higher than his batting average. So he does get on base, and he's actually had an OPS plus above 100, above league average, every single year of his career. So I didn't realize he was still producing at that level this late in his career. So, yeah, that's definitely an option to man left field. The defense is still there for left anyway. But, Daniel, I'll go with you. The same question, free agency-wise, strictly free agent, because we know the trade targets that the Marlins are going to be going after. Which free agent would you assume realistically that the Marlins go after here?
I would like to see them pick up someone like Eddie Rosario, especially what he had at the tail end of the season, and especially that incredible playoff run. I think it was hitting over 300, and I think OPS was around 9. He was just incredible at that time. But I think for him, it's going to come up to money. I think he's going to ask for way more than what the Marlins are going to want to give him. Same thing with another Brave, Jorge Soler. He would mash home runs in Marlins Park, but I think he's also going to want a big number, and the Marlins are probably going to lowball him. Then, if you look at outfielders, Marlins should get someone like Chris Taylor, but they'll probably end up like with someone like Brett Gardner, if we're being realistic. I think you have to just lower expectations, especially with the Marlins in free agency. We would all like someone, one of these big name guys, but I think maybe really realistically, maybe someone like Tommy Pham. I think Tommy Pham will be pretty decent with the Marlins. Reliable player, a good player, will be good for the locker room. And I think someone like that will be good. But Andrew McCutchen, I think you nailed it. I think he'll be, a perfect fit down here in Miami, just with fans. And I think he'll be a really good co-leader, especially with Miguel Rojas in that aspect. Two guys who've been there, who've done that, and who really get the respect of the fans, the players, the management. And I think Andrew McCutchen, like you mentioned, would be really great also.
Yeah, with McCutchen, you are going to get that great clubhouse presence. You're going to get that guy where, the younger guys that Craig Mish mentioned about Duvall, the younger guys will go to McCutchen, when they're struggling. Hey, listen, Kutch, what do I do here? So, Eli, we're going to switch over to – all of this might not matter in a matter of a couple of weeks. The collective bargaining agreement expires on December 1st. So, Eli, any sort of update on that? I know that Major League Baseball, the union and the owners have had some sort of dialogue, but it's not promising that anything will come to fruition here. So what are the odds that opening day starts on March 31st?
Interestingly, I was listening to this podcast from The Athletic with Evan Drellich and Ken Rosenthal this morning, the guys who are really plugged into these negotiations. And at the very end, they gave predictions for how long they think the lockout is going to last. And I was surprised by how optimistic they were, where both of them said that they think it's going to be figured out before spring training. They think there's just so much money on the line. The league is so prosperous. And in particular with this situation, there don't seem to be like really black and white issues that there's no like signature issue that seems to be holding things up. Like on the player side, what we noticed is that players are peaking younger than ever, and those players aren't getting paid because of how the current system is set up. So it'd be great to change the salary structure in a way that compensates those guys earlier in their careers. From the owner side, I guess it's the same thing that they've probably won for decades, some sort of salary cap to protect the biggest idiots among them from going over the top. But that doesn't seem like a make or break issue for them. They haven't really dug in their heels about that. Otherwise, it would have come up more so in previous CBA talks. And you really can't point, aside from maybe the Dodgers the last few years, most teams ownerships have been pretty tight pursed about that. There haven't been that many horror stories on the owner side of guys going out of control with that type of stuff. And I mean, despite that, there's always this tone surrounding baseball about the sport dying in some way. The audience literally getting older and older and older compared to other sports. But when you look at the bigger picture, that stuff that doesn't hold up. This is a generally prosperous time for the sport. It was a fun regular season that they're coming off of. And there's a whole lot of exciting storylines around baseball. So just from listening to those insiders that are really following this stuff closely, made me more optimistic. If you want me personally, it always seems like these sides let me down. I would guess that it goes on longer than it needs to be. But in terms of it actually threatening regular season games and any of that, at this moment, I feel like that's not an issue, that they're going to figure things out before it reaches that breaking point.
Yeah, well, that's good to hear, because you'd think the two main things that would be a non-starter for the players, or that the players want to change, is the service time manipulation. I think that's something that they want to nip in the bud sooner rather than later, as well as a salary cap. I don't think the players would ever go for anything like that, because it only hurts them. Alex, your thoughts on any sort of compromise here with the collective bargaining agreement?
Yeah, so I mean, we heard that they started very, very premature talks today on this, which I don't think we'll see anything in the pretty near future on this, because I think there's a lot to talk about. Eli mentioned salary cap. There was also talks about salary floor. So that's another thing to kind of keep in mind, that, they want to lower the luxury tax and make it so that owners spend more, so that the league is more competitive. I honestly don't know if that will actually come to fruition in this CBA. There definitely is talk about it. I don't know how stringent they are on that. Probably not very much, because I'm pretty sure the league probably understands that, asking owners to open their checkbooks is never probably a thing that's going to go over well in terms of owners. So unless they really want to look at an extended lockout, I really don't think that they'll push too hard on it, as Eli was saying. So like he said, I don't really think there's any like dire pressing issue, right, that one side's going to look at and say, okay, we're not doing it because of this reason. So, yeah, I mean, honestly, it's good to hear what Eli just said, that he listened to Ken's podcast on The Athletic, and that they're pretty optimistic about it. And if they're optimistic about it, they're more plugged into this than any of us. That's very good news in terms of the business front. So, yeah, I mean, honestly, I think it will, if I'm estimating in my own estimation, it will go past December 1st. And there will be some kind of freeze on transactions. As we know, nothing can happen during that time. So, but I don't think spring training should be an issue, just because there's not that like black or white issue. So yeah, I mean, I'm kind of confident that spring training should start on time. And it's looking that way, but there may be some kind of freeze. I'm guessing there will be. Yeah, no, I definitely think at the very least there's going to be a freeze on transactions, like you said, at some point, from December to mid-December, late December, going into January possibly. But, if that's the worst case scenario, great, because after a COVID shortened season in 2020, the last thing anyone needs, financially or, entertainment wise, is any more shortened baseball season. Shout out to our friend Daniel Alvarez, by the way, for reporting that Brian De La Cruz just hit a grand slam in the Dominican League.
The two goats.
The only reason why I'm missing it right now is this silly stream. Otherwise, I'd be watching that and sharing clips of that. Yeah, De La Cruz. If you wanted to pivot into that anyway, that's fascinating that he's even playing in the DR right now. It's great that he's succeeding, and it's interesting that he's playing center field, because that is a question with him in terms of his exact fit on the roster. We know that if you put him in the corners, he brings a lot of value defensively, and with center, it was kind of hit or miss. But with Toros del Este, he'll get an opportunity, it seems, to play center field on a daily basis for as long as the Marlins give him a permission to, and to see him actually hitting it out of the ballpark too. I've touted how much I love his hitting ability and some of the things he does that will allow him to continue to excel in terms of just getting on base and spraying the ball around. But we know he has really good raw power, and to see him actually showing it, this is just his second game of the Winter League season. To the fact that he's showing it is, it speaks for itself. That's super duper exciting.
And also to note, Jesus Sanchez is in that same team, so I guess we could also talk a little bit about Jesus in the DR as well.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm not mistaken. I think Jesus is hitting right behind De La Cruz, or I'm sorry, Sanchez is hitting in front of De La Cruz. But moving on to a different offseason league is the Arizona Fall League. So Hector, I'll go to you here. Blade named an All-Star for the Arizona Fall League. That game will be played on Saturday night. Cameron Meisner has really gone hot recently. So what is your takeaway from all the Marlins offensive prospects really succeeding over here in a pitching starving league apparently?
You're muted.
You're muted.
Thank you for that. So, yeah, I'm pretty sure a bunch of Marlins fans are just excited for the fact that J.J. Bleday's finally producing at the plate, even though the Arizona Fall League right now, they're having a hard time finding some quality arms. I know the ERA, there's like a 6 or something. But Bleday's making really good contact. Cameron Meisner looked really good towards the end of the season. And when he got called up to Double-A, he really didn't slow down. In fact, he looked like he was playing better. Both of those guys were top prospects coming out of the draft. I think Meisner was considered a top 15 pick going into his college season. Fell a little bit after struggling in the SEC. But you could see, and I think during the draft day, Ken Griffey Jr. commented on both Bleday and Meisner on their swing. I think their swing is pure. I think there's just some things that they need to fix because, when you play in the SEC, I cover college baseball. I cover the Florida Gators who play in the SEC. Every Friday night guy can be a big league pitcher. There's no way around it. Every SEC, you go to Vanderbilt. They're number 1 and 2 are first round picks. You go to Florida, their 3 rotation guys were all drafted in the first 10 rounds. You go to Arkansas, they have studs. You go to Alabama, starting to produce some really good baseball players, especially a left-handed pitcher named Connor. I can't pronounce his last name, so I'm not going to try to butcher the shit out of that. So, Meisner and Blade hit really, really well against really good competition. So I know, minor league baseball is a different animal, but the SEC, there's great pitching in the SEC. That's the point I'm trying to get across. I think Blade and Meisner are both talented enough to, make that next step. And I think, maybe this is the next step for Blade and Meisner. They both missed a year of development, and it wasn't like Blade was struggling in the fish tank, as I think Eli used to call it.
Yeah.
I asked Craig, was Blade having these, struggles, these issues last year, and we just didn't know about it? And he said, no, he was actually like one of their top performers offensively. So that's why a lot of people were caught off guard. I think it's just, he hasn't played an official game in over a year, and now he's finally starting to get back into the rhythm. I'm still holding out hope for JJ Blade because he was really a really good player in college, and I think he could be a really good player in the big leagues.
Yeah, like I mentioned in Fish Stripes Unfiltered, he was always just a pure hitter in college. The power just ended up showing up his junior year of Vanderbilt, but before that, he was starting every single day because of his pure hitting ability. So, Kevin, just give us your thoughts on so far how the Marlins prospects are performing in the AFL.
I'm pretty happy with most of them. I mean, Blade has just been dominating the AFL at the moment. I mean, the guy started a little bit shaky, and then little by little has just been ramping it up, and now he's an all-star. Meisner is pretty much the same thing. Started off a little bit shaky, and he had a low batting average, and then he's just start hitting, and he's dominating now. I think the big name for us to talk about, and I don't know how much we'll get into it. I know Alex will, but Will Banfield. The guy's been struggling a lot. I mean, he's never been able to get it going offensively. He has the power. He has it all to be a good catcher and a offensive threat, but we just don't see it. I can't talk too much about the pitching. I know we were talking about Jeffrey Yan at the start when the AFL first began. I'm pretty sure his ERA is like extremely high right now. He just got hit on big time. Evan Fitter seems to be doing good in the AFL. I know he's been okay. Can't talk about the other one. I forgot his name right now, but
yeah, I'll help you, Kevin. Well, Fitterer got hurt, which stinks. After he only pitched 2 games, and then I noticed, like they seem to skip his start, and now he's officially hurt, and they brought in an extra pitcher to fill his shoes. And Jeffrey Yan has had a weird experience where a couple of his outings have been nightmares for him, and then everything else has been dominant. So it's been more good than bad, but inflating the overall numbers. So I don't know what you do with that. I'm surprised how much time on these streams we spent on the AFL. I think we mentioned it on like 4 straight streams, which is way more coverage than I thought we would give it. So that's just me personally, where it doesn't change my opinion a whole lot one way or the other with someone like Blade. So he had a really bad year. And I think a lot of us, myself included, were of the opinion to not overreact, that he had a really strong track record, that he checks a lot of boxes as an all-around player. He'll be fine. And I guess really what this fall league performance has done is kind of validate that sentiment, that if you combine his fall league numbers with his regular season numbers, he's more or less an average hitter who has really good plate discipline. And there's still some questions about whether those college home run numbers are going to translate to the pros, because some of the measurables just on his exit velo is really not that special that we thought it might be. Whereas Cameron Meisner, who his overall numbers, he did not get a fall-star selection. And I mean, whatever, but I think his all league performance has been even more encouraging than Blade, because if you just look at the like spectacular home runs that he's hitting, one of the leaders in that league, and hitting like no doubters with most of them, and doing it even against left-handed pitchers. He had one in particular against, I forget his name, Roensi Contreras of the Pirates. He's one of the better pitching prospects in the fall league, and Meisner took him deep. And I thought that was one particular moment that you can take more away from that than you can for most of the fall league, where he's beating up on, to be honest, scrubs. And just other depth pieces, but that was against one legit prospect. So to me, the one player that maybe has boosted his stock in some significant way from the fall league has actually been Meisner over Blade.
And not to mention, a lot of us, I mean, not a lot, not all, not everyone here, but a lot of people were starting to doubt JJ Blade and his ability to really get it going in minor leagues, as although there was a shortened season in 2020, there was no MILB in 2020, but he just didn't have the best Pensacola Blue Wahoo season. He just did not have a good season in minor leagues. He got it going at the end, and I guess he kept it going in the Arizona Fall League. And Cam Meisner, who we're all very high on, I would assume here, he's really getting it going, and that's the best part of it. You know, this was meant for them to get extra reps, and it's worked out for them a lot. So I'm glad for a guy like Blade who's really starting to turn it around and got himself an all-star selection.
And just speaking of all these minor league guys, I think something that would be fun to talk about really quick is, the Marlins you'd assume are going to have some sort of, some finalists for Rookie of the Year or guys into contention for the Rookie of the Year in 2022, whether it be a guy like Max Meyer, whether it be like Sixto Sanchez, Edward Cabrera, maybe even Luzardo, maybe even a De La Cruz or Jesus Sanchez if they go crazy. So I want to go around the room and think who has the best shot of being a finalist for National League Rookie of the Year in 2022. It could be someone like JJ Blade. If he goes scorching hot in AA or AAA, wherever he starts, he'll see some major league time next year. You can say that for sure. And maybe he gets hot enough to be a finalist. So Alex, I'll start with you here. Whether it's a major league guy or a minor league guy, who would you say has the best shot of being a finalist for Rookie of the Year in 2022?
Yeah, if you want to look at a pure rookie, Blade obviously sticks out, as you just said. Another guy, if he is still on the Marlins in 2022, could be Peyton Burdick. I thought Peyton Burdick could have been a guy that potentially in a different scenario got called up to the Marlins this year because he looked ready, like especially in the second half. He definitely looked ready, went up to AAA, looked okay. So at the end of the year, that was. So, yeah, I mean, honestly, those two outfielders for sure are there. Max Meyer is the other one for every reason that I said before. The Marlins are looking to clear a rotation spot apparently, and they want a young arm to take over that position. To me, that points to Max Meyer. That's the guy that the singular guy that it points to. Everybody else, Eater had a great year, but obviously got injured. Other guys behind that are not ready yet. So if they're wanting to clear a spot for an in-house pitcher, it will be Max Meyer for sure. So yeah, those would be the main three. You can give an outside shot to Cam Meisner. As Eli said, he's second in the Arizona Fall League in home runs, only to Nelson Velasquez. Obviously, and I do agree with everything that Eli said, this is another form of spring training. It's obviously it's after the season rather than before the season, but these guys are all working on something. The pitchers are working on something. The parks are smaller. We can't get too carried away with anything any of these guys are doing. It is great to see that, I heard from Joe Frisaro that, in the interview that he did with Blade while he was in Arizona, that Blade has learned to clean up his swing. He's still walking as he was doing all season. So the patience hasn't gone and he's adjusting his swing, which is great to see. You want to see that permeate into next minor league season. And if it does so, I would say within the first 2, possibly even 3 months, that's a guy by the month of July, especially if the Marlins are out of it again, that you will definitely see him in a Major League Baseball uniform. Is that enough time for Rookie of the Year? Probably not. But if it happens before that, that's a guy that you can definitely point to. So those are my main guys, man. They're going to take it easy with a lot of these other prospects that are not ready just yet. But guys that you could point to next season and say, okay, they could play close to a full season, more than half a season, it will be those guys.
Yeah, when it comes to Morosi's tweet, I think that, just to disagree with you a little bit, is if they're going to trade Eliezer or one of those guys to create a spot, I think they're going to let Max Meyer, no matter what, start the season in the minors. I think that next young guy would be, Sixto, Luzardo, or Edward, in my opinion. Max Meyer would, but definitely if they were to trade a second major league starting pitcher that's already in arbitration, I think Max Meyer is that guy. Daniel, I'll go to you here. Who's your Rookie of the Year candidate for 2022 for the Marlins?
I think, if everything goes good, maybe opening day or someone, I think Max Meyer is probably the favorite in terms of pitching, because if they do trade Eliezer, if they do trade Pablo, I think Max Meyer is probably the front runner in terms to get that spot in the rotation and, can just go through and dominate dominate the whole season. And I was also wondering, is Brandon De Cruz eligible to be Rookie of the Year? Because if he starts opening day, that's someone that easily could probably get votes and be a finalist if DLC could get that.
Well, Isaac is nodding for you, but I'm pretty sure he graduated.
Did he?
Yeah, he played just enough down the stretch to graduate. A name I wanted to throw out there is somebody that we saw quite a bit in 2020, but actually technically did not graduate by the way that Rookie of the Year criteria is. That'd be Sixto Sanchez.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. No.
I still think, who I still think very highly of. For some reason, it doesn't seem that the Marlins organization thinks as highly of him as I do. The concern is that I have no idea how much his workload would be next year after not really pitching at all this previous year, and after historically he hasn't pitched anything close to a full major league season. So there'll be some sort of limit in place, but there was some sort of limit in place for Trevor Rogers this year, and yet he still put together a season where he was the most outstanding National League rookie pitcher, even though we just missed out, we think, on the overall award. So I think very highly of Sixto, and that he'll be so effective in whatever innings that he does pitch that he will have a very interesting case.
So we know Eli's
this year. Sorry, go ahead, Alex.
Yeah, I was just going to say really quick, Isaac. We know Eli's definitely not out on Sixto, and I don't think any of us are. But both of those guys, I'm talking about Meyer and Sixto Sanchez, I think will definitely start the year in AAA. And it's a hitter-friendly environment, as we all know, in the old Southern League, which is mostly intact still. So there's room, I think, at least, there is room, especially if Sixto's health concerns, hopefully not, especially if Sixto's health concerns continue, there is room for Max Meyer to jump him as a prospect. I already have him over Sixto personally. Mm-hmm. A lot of other people don't. But, that's a conversation to have, is where are both of these players as prospects? And to say that about Max Meyer after one season is massive. So, again, I think that's a guy that they will be very reluctant to move on from. Obviously, I'm not, an insider like Craig or Morosi or any of these other guys. That's just a personal opinion after everything that's happened with Jake Eater. That's this feeder system, and he's the forefront of it. So I think it will take an overwhelming amount to have the Marlins move on from Max Meyer, because I think that's the guy that they're pointing to be the next heir apparent for this rotation.
Yeah, I don't think Max Meyer is going anywhere. To put him over Sixto, just based on Sixto's performance in his short stint in the major leagues, he showed it in the playoffs. He was just so good, and like Eli said in one stream, I think his floor is as high as any starting pitchers in the starting rotation, except for Sandy and Pablo. So that'll be definitely something interesting to see. Hector, I was wondering your thoughts on any potential. Jesus did graduate. I apologize for that. That's bad on my part. But Luzardo, I believe, is he still a rookie, Eli?
No, he's gone too.
Yeah,
a couple of years ago.
Lewin is a rookie, if I'm not mistaken, right?
I think Lewin is gone.
Lewin is
also
gone as well, yeah.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he graduated too.
Yeah,
Lewin, Jesus Sanchez, all those guys are gone.
No, but Sixto, because I knew Sixto was a Rookie of the Year candidate going into this year, and he didn't pitch at all. So Sixto is still a candidate. So taking Sixto into consideration, all the minor league guys who would be your 2022 finalists.
That's why it's a good question, because there's guys on the major league roster that are all graduated. Everybody that we just said
really graduated. Too.
So you're looking at new blood, all the way. Other than Sixto, a guy that has had major league experience, albeit a little bit, you're looking at mostly new guys. So that's why.
Right. No, thank God, because I was under the impression that Jesus and Lewin and Brian De La Cruz were still rookies. So that's my fuck up. But Hector, your thought?
Yeah, I definitely thought Lewin Diaz was still, considered a rookie. But for me, I would, Sixto's my guy, Noche de Sixto. I saw him when he pitched, the couple times he pitched in spring training. I went to one of his games. I was able to cover it. And he looked great. Throwing strikes, throwing high velocity, mixing his pitches very well. Wasn't falling behind on batters, he got hurt. But I think, when this guy bursted onto the scene, he was always a top prospect. But when he finally got to the big leagues, everyone was wowed by the arm talent, by the command of his pitches, the movement of his pitches. And I think we were just so far removed from it that we kind of forget exactly how good Sixto was during that shortened season. Now, obviously, Sixto has things to work on. You know, he's far from being a perfect pitcher and far from being a perfect athlete, but I think Sixto could still be that number one, that frontline type starter if he continues to mature and he continues to take care of himself and, you know, recovers. Because I think when he's on the mound, he's one of the best young pitchers in the game. And he looked like, I mean, that's why the Marlins said in the wild card series against the Cubs, like, hey, you got game 2, young bullet. Go up against a very, very dangerous Chicago Cubs offense. And he mowed them down. They already knew what they had in Sandy. Sandy was already at this point, okay, he's the main horse. He's the ace. But Sixto, they really didn't know. He was a rookie. And they said, hey, guess what? We're going with you because we believe in you. They haven't seen what you had yet. And he pitched great. So, yeah, I think Sixto. But if it's not Sixto, I would go with a Max Meyer because the kid's just got incredible stuff. And if it's somebody offensively, J.J. Leday, if he really has turned the corner.
Yeah, you know, I think if Sixto is fully healthy, which I think he will be, he had that surgery pretty early, like, you know, I think midway through the Major League season. He's had a lot of recovery time. If he's able to, you know, start the year in the rotation, which maybe he'll come up halfway through April or something like he was planning on this 2021 season. If he gets 130, 150 innings under his belt in the Major League season and he performs well, he'd be my lock-in for that award. But moving on to a different award, it's prediction time. Since there's no Major League Baseball going on, there is Dominican baseball going on. There is AFL baseball going on. But we're going to do our predictions for the National League and American League MVP race, since, you know, we're all biased for the National League Rookie of the Year award. So, Alex, I'll go with you. It's a pretty obvious one. If you think about it with the AL MVP, some people don't think so. I know Christina De Nicola doesn't think so. I don't think so either. But who is your choice between Shohei Ohtani, Vladimir Guerrero Jr., and Marcus Semien? Muted.
You're muted.
Muted.
Alex, you're muted.
Crap, my bad. Between those 3 guys, you said Shohei, Vlad, and Marcus Semien, who I think is a free agent, by the way. But anyways, you got to give it to Shohei. Honestly, I think it has to be Shohei Ohtani. 2-way player, does everything, hits for power, all over the place. Just a absolute freaking, like, that's Babe Ruth in the modern day. So, yeah, I mean, I think it has to be Shohei Ohtani in terms of those 3 guys. Vlad had an outstanding year, great young player. His baseball card's going insane, by the way, right now. But anyways, yeah, Vlad Guerrero, great. So it's definitely between those 2 guys. Semien had a great year too. But I think because of just pure athleticism, he has a great attitude. I mean, it's a guy that writers will definitely fawn over. I think it has to be Shohei Ohtani.
National League, Tatis, Harper, Soto.
This one's a little harder, but I think you have to give this one just based off, again, major spark plug, plays an absolute, like, just a premium position, hits for power, hits for average, great guy in the clubhouse, great guy with fans. Another guy that writers will fawn over and definitely look at is Fernando Tatis Jr., and those are going to be my 2 picks.
Eli, over to you. American League Most Valuable Player.
It's Ohtani. I can't believe there are people that aren't totally on board and aren't appreciative of just how unprecedented what he did is. It's not like the most extraordinary 2-way player since Babe Ruth. It's the most extraordinary 2-way player ever. It is doing things that Babe Ruth dreamt that he could do, that he could not do at the same time simultaneously. And there were little lulls during the season where we thought either the pitching would dip off because he lost his command during stretches, or we thought the hitting would dip off because the strikeouts are piling up, and then he always corrected it. And the final numbers are just totally staggering. He was an all-star caliber pitcher. He was an all-star caliber hitter in the same season, and I just love the way that the Angels let him ride. They did not. They took the training wheels off, all the wheels off, and just let him put in a whole lot of work, especially as a hitter, to like compile that production. And it's unfortunate that the team didn't contend, but as I think you mentioned, a bunch of people have pointed this out, how like none of these players made the playoffs. None of these finalists on either league for the MVP were actually in the postseason, so I don't hold that against them. And then in the National League, I have Harper as well, Bryce Harper. He certainly has the narrative on his side, the way that his season went. There were stretches definitely there, extended stretches where he was hitting as well as he ever has, and that's a very high bar to clear for a guy that for most of the last decade has sometimes very loudly and sometimes with the Phillies kind of under the radar just been an extraordinary player. So he's awesome, and I think that he's going to get it, but that one's going to be a lot closer in the National League than in the American League.
I guess the only argument against Shohei would be, okay, he's doing this, these remarkable things, which in this modern era is just, outstanding. But if he does this every single year, like, if he hits 30 home runs and has an ERA under 4 every single year, do you give him the award every single year?
We've got to appreciate just how well this went for him this year. I think this is likely going to be the very best season of his career because it's one of the best seasons of anybody's career, the way that he has combined this stuff. I understand the concern about setting that precedent. And once you do that, it's hard to go back. But what he did, you really need to take a look at how freakish it was on both sides of the ball. So I'm not looking that far ahead or worried about that aspect of it.
Yeah, no, I mean, you start giving him the award, Sean Reynolds might be a finalist for the award.
Yeah.
Hector,
who's already 25, 26 years old, by the way. Anyway,
strikes out at what, 75%? Hector, your AL MVP and NL MVP thoughts?
Obviously, Shohei for the American League. I mean, what a season, Hell, though, the only thing that people were talking about leading up to the All-Star game was Shohei Ohtani, pitching in the All-Star game, hitting the All-Star game, and also hitting the home run derby. So, obviously, Ohtani there for the National League. It's very tight. I think it's between Tatis, Soto, and Harper. I feel like it's going to be Bryce Harper. I feel like Bryce Harper is going to be the winner at the end of the day. He had an excellent season. It's weird because none of these teams made it to the postseason. Hell, for the most part, some of these teams weren't really that competitive, especially Washington. Soto played on a very non-competitive team towards the end of the season. That's why they finished in dead last in the National League East. The Nationals tanking is the only reason why the Marlins did not finish in dead last in the NL East. I think Bryce Harper wins his second. He was great this year. He was great this year, and I think the Phillies would have been a pretty bad team if they did not have this type of Bryce Harper this season.
And to go against Shohei one more time, or what would have gone against Shohei is, the team competitiveness. But like you said, Eli, and Hector, none of the teams were in the postseason. So you can't, give Vlad any credit there because, Soto is an MVP finalist and his team was one of the worst in all of Major League Baseball. Daniel, your thoughts on
Toronto was at least Toronto missed it by a game, though.
Yeah, that is correct. Though the Blue Jays were the most competitive team of all these teams represented in the MVP race. Daniel, your thought on MVP?
I think I got to agree with Eli and Hector. I think Ohtani is the clear-cut choice because I really look at his pitching stats and they really stick out. I think he has a 3.16 ERA, over 150 strikeouts and 130 innings. That's just, incredible to see. That's elite. I think Trevor Rogers has almost the same numbers in innings and strikeouts. And then, and then for the NL, that's really the hard one. But I would think I'll go with Bryce Harper. I think he leads the league in OPS and what he did for the Phillies being, their main guy on a team that really had big expectations and it fell through, but he was the guy that just kept going and going and going and trying to battle out at the bottom of the NL East, trying to get to a wild card spot. But I think Ohtani and Harper, those are the two of the best in each league.
Yeah, just looking at Shohei's numbers, it's almost like if Trevor Rogers and Adam Duvall combined for a player, and it's those two guys. It really is remarkable what Shohei has done. Kevin, your AL and NL MVP.
Yeah, I'm gonna go here with what Eli and Daniel said, and Hector. Ohtani for the AL. I think it's the clear cut. I think whoever votes Vladdy, they may have a point, but at the end of the day, Ohtani did it on both ends. On the pitching end, for ERA under 4, he was just one of the best pitchers in that AL. And then you have, Bryce Harper on the other hand, who carried that Phillies team to as much as he could to second place because. Although none of these teams made the playoffs, 2 of them were really close, and those were the Toronto Blue Jays who had it there until the end, and then you have the Phillies who were fighting it out with the Mets and the Braves till the very end there. So Yeah, Bryce Harper is just a monster. I'm pretty sure he won the Hank Aaron Award as well for best offensive season. So that's I guess that's gonna put him his case for NL MVP a little bit higher. So yeah, Harper and Ohtani win those MVPs.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with almost half of you guys. I definitely think it's gonna be Shohei. Even though I think it's a shame because Vlad just had a remarkable season for a much more competitive team and a much more competitive division in the AL East. I think Vladimir Guerrero Jr. is going to be one of the best players we've ever seen. So it's a shame that he didn't win it, but he's going to have a lot of years to eventually win the award. But I think this year it's going to go to Shohei. I think he's just the charisma he has, the fact that, like I said, he's a phenomenal pitcher and a phenomenal hitter all in one player. I think he gets the AL MVP. And for the National League MVP, it's a lot closer between Tatis and Harper. I think I would pick Soto if I had to pick one on my team, ironically, but I would go with Bryce Harper to win the National League MVP, just because his team was the most competitive and he was just the most consistent throughout the entire year. So we're already past an hour. I guess that'll wrap things up here for the Fish Tribes off-season edition. My name is Isaac Zood. Thank you for tuning in. For Alex, for Eli, for Hector, for Daniel, for Kevin, thank you guys for watching. We'll see you next week.